Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
I can't believe we're back in the room together. It's been a year since we've seen each other. This is so special to be here again. We're going to turn to page 10. Yes, we'll sing. Even in your masks you can sing. Yedid nefesh Afarachaman. Yedid nefesh Afarachaman. Meshuchah becha Eretz onecha. Meshuchah becha Ya la 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 Eretz onecha. Yarutz avdecha kemo ayal. Yishtachave ya la la ya la 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 el mul chadarecha. Let's try that again. Yedid nefesh afarachaman. Yedid nefesh afarachaman. Beshochadecha Eretz onecha. Meshuchadecha Ya la 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 El mul hadarecha. Yarutz avdecha kemo ayal. Yishtachave ya la la ya la 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 El mul hadarecha. Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la ya la la ya ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya la 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 Ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 la
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, it's so good to see you all. Can't even tell you. I'm so used to staring at a green dot. Your faces are far more beautiful than that green dot. So as we move into this Shabbat, I'd like to invite up Emmy Cutler and Dylan and Tyler Sufer's family to help us light the Shabbat candles and lead us in the Friday night Kiddush. Let's bring the whole family up. The whole mishpucha.
Die ganze Mishpuche. And we have one table for the Cutlers and one table for the Sufers. And you'll see the blessing for the candles on page 2, and we can light the candles.
If you'd like to, I invite you to close your eyes and let go of all of the stress, all of the things you do not want to take with you as you head into the Shabbat. And only open your eyes at the end of the blessing when you're actually ready to shift into that new time.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
So I'm going to invite Emmy, Dylan, and Tyler to now lead us in the Friday Night Kiddush.
And I want to make sure that you have your words in front of you. Dylan, I see you have a prayer book. Emmy, I'm going to give you one. Here, let me give you one. Hold on a second. And I believe it is on page 5. Oh, Rabbi got you. Okay. And the blessing, let's make sure you all are ready. And everybody, we're going to join them, so you should be ready as well. And we are on page 5. And you're going to pick up the Kiddush cup, one of you, and you're going to hold it up while we say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'b'ratzon hinhilanu zikaron l'maaseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh zecher litziyat Mitzrayim ki banu V'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim
Shabbat kodshecha avarata
hin'otanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Amen. L'chaim, take a sip. You can. It's grape juice.
It's probably grape juice.
I was telling the rabbi that hearing your voices just got to me.
Thank you. You know, I think one of the reasons why the voices, they get to us is the way Judaism was designed 2,000 years ago, not before then, but 2,000 years ago, was that it went from this being a temple. Like, I know we call this Temple Emanu-El. My kids call it Temple Emanu-El to drive me crazy, but it's a synagogue. And it was no longer about a priesthood, but it was actually a synagogue, which was Greek for gathering place of people. And the only thing that makes the place sacred is the people. And so for 18 months, we've just been hearing our voices, and that doesn't do it. That now it's that sacredness is back. It was there, but it's a lot more there now. And so, you know, it's fitting that as we regather, as we talk about this phase of a life cycle, we have another phase of a life cycle. So I would like to invite Zoe up to invite her. She's going to bring her parents with her because she needs a name and she needs her parents for the name. Is that it's about, the whole community coming together and celebrating kind of every different phase of life. And she is ridiculously cute. So first I'm going to give her her official name, but then right after that, we would like to give her a blessing. And it's the same blessing she's going to get at different moments throughout her life, at really peak moments. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu kayam et hayelda hazot la'avi ulima v'yikra shema b'Yisrael Chana bat Noach v'Shoshana. Our God and God of our mothers and our fathers, sustain this child through her parents' loving care. Let her be known among our people Israel by the name of Chava. May her name be a source of joy to her and inspire her to serve our people and all of humankind. May her parents rejoice in the growth of her tiny little body and her gigantic soul. As they have brought her into the covenant, so may they, with wisdom and a tremendous amount of patience, lead her to the study of Torah, to a life of good deeds, and to a marriage worthy of God's blessing. And let us all say, Amen. Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and
Siman Tov, Siman Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Siman Tov, Siman Tov and Mazel Tov and Mazel Tov and Siman Tov.
Before we let you go, we would like to give her a blessing. And it's the oldest blessing we have in all of Judaism. It's one which those 3 B'nai Mitzvah students will all get tomorrow. It's one that is given at the chuppah. It's the Prisi blessing, which really prays for her safety, her soul, and that at all moments, like tonight when you're as joyous as could be, is that she finds a place of shalom, a place of wholeness and peace.
May
God bless you and keep you very safe. May the light of the divine shine on her beautiful little pudim and fill her up with light.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך shalom.
And in all of her moments, even when she's a little fussy, may she find a place of shalom, a place of peace, a place of wholeness. Amen.
Amen.
Mazel tov. And so we're going to continue as we welcome in Shabbat. We are on page 20 with Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, כי שמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. lecha dodi לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. lecha dodi לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, אדוני, עלייך נגלה, לך תודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת תקבלה, לך תודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובתוך עולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
We're on page 24 with Shalom Aleichem.
שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. יא אלי אלי, יא אלי
Please rise as we turn to page 28 for the Baruch. Please be seated and join me in the English on page 30 for the Ma'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gate, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly choruses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzavaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. One of the, if not the, ugliest parts of all of American history is slavery. It's in many respects how this country began. And so it's a big deal that we finally have a national holiday of Juneteenth, to not just talk about the darkness and the horror, but also the idea that a country can begin its process of changing, of actually seeing where hate is and saying what you need in the world is just far more love. And we're not there yet. We're still working. We still have a long way to go. But it's a reminder that only real beautiful change has ever come when you add that love to the world. We're on page 32, which is a blessing all about pushing that love into the world.
And I'm going to teach you just a simple little chorus. The words are just Ahavat Olam. Everybody say Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam.
You might know that Ahava in Hebrew means love. Olam means the world. Ahavat is we call it smichud. I don't know what the word is in English. It's love of the world, love of the world, love for the world, love for the world. And it goes like this. Ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam. Let's try that. Ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. Let's try that again. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. Ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. What a great love, great love. What a great love you have given us. Ahavat olam, ahavat olam, ahavat olam. What a great love you have given us.
I invite everyone to take 3 fingers, the letter Shin, and to cover your eyes. And close your eyes and take a big, deep breath. Where in the Shema, you no longer look out, but you begin to look within.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Hayet. And the teaching is, in case you're thinking, oh, wait a second, aren't we supposed to stand for the Shema? Did anybody think that? Right? So the Talmud says, whatever position you're in, even if you're sitting in a tree, when evening comes and you say the Shema, or any time of the day that you say the Shema, morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever position you're in already at that moment, that's the position you stay in. Reformed synagogues have had a custom of rising for the Shema, but really the Talmud tells us wherever, if you're sitting in a tree, then you say it sitting in a tree. They really talk about trees in there. And we continue with the Ve'ahavta tomorrow morning. It will be so lovely to hear our B'nai Mitzvah, Emmy and Dylan and Tyler chanting for us. And so you can be extra, this is your rehearsal, and you can practice extra strong right now. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
So there's different parts of Jewish tradition. You know, there are parts which talks about getting up and fighting forward for justice, and there's other parts that says you actually just need to burst forward into joy and celebration when you realize the moment that you're in. And Micha Mocha is that part on page 40. That oftentimes we think about everything that led up to it, the slavery in Egypt, the plagues, the fear, but this part is a snapshot, like a still picture in time to say, there are times just say, thank God I am free, and let's just dance.
לפני משה ומרים זה לי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד מי כמוך באלי אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש ונאמר כי ודרנה את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We're on page 43. As a congregation, we are praying for the healing of Susan Cole, Frank Friedman, Rusty Holden, Lauren Knickerbocker, Sandra Gordon, Terry Borer, Marco Friedman, Sonia Gordon, Rick Gluck, Musa Busina, Perry Vash Busina, Angelica Cavaniero, Christina Lopez, Gerd Stern, Barbara Mitchell, Max Benningfeld, Aaron Leopold, Nancy Salson, Susan Liu Wen. If there's someone else who you are praying for the healing of either their body or their spirit, or sometimes both, please share their name when my hand passes over you.
Shoshana Volkes, Dorit Yafi, Serena Saltis.
Mishaberach Avotenu v'Imotenu, Avraham, Yitzhak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, Hu Yivarech et HaCholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and a complete renewal of spirit. And let us all say, Amen.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Oh, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. We continue with the Hashki Venu, another prayer that prays for protection over us. And I'm just so glad you're here. I can't get over that I haven't seen you in a year. It's hard to cry when you're, it's hard to cry. It's hard to sing when you have tears in your eyes. We're on page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Shall we try that together? Spread
page 46, we move to the Amidah. And just like when we talk about the Shema, do you sit or do you stand, or what do you do in a tree? If we're standing in a tree, I guess. The Amidah, the rabbis, they were not always the most creative in their naming of sections of the service, because Amidah literally means stand. But I'm not going to ask you to stand just yet, because this feels like a different service. Is that we're going to start off, and this is the opening part here on page 46 is actually just a meditation. This is just trying to get you ready, because this is the main part of the service. And so as we sing Adonai Sefatayv Tiftach, which is literally about opening my mouth so I can just say thank you, because that's all we're saying on Shabbat. When you feel like you're actually ready to stand and really step into that peak part of the service, only then, please rise.
Adonai, Adonai, Sefatayv Tiftach, Ufi, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha. Adonai, Adonai, Sefatayv Tiftach, Ufi Yagi, Tehilatecha. Ufi Yagi, Adonai Sefatayv Tiftach, Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'Meivi Geulah Livnei B'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah Rav leHoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Sohomech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please continue silently, and when you have finished, please be seated.
Page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. B'tov b'necha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלום Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim
This is my first time giving a drosh since before the pandemic in person. I cannot tell you how good it feels to be in the room with you. That's why the cantor just had to stop singing so your voices could blanket us. So this week, as we hit June 15th and California reopened, there has been this reflection on how happy people are to return to normal, to get back to life. And then, as if knowing that this was the week that we were reopening, that we tried to return to normal, we are given Parshat Hukat, imploring us to be careful on how we approach the moment that we're in. Now, upon first look of this Parsha, it doesn't appear like that's what this is doing at all. Because prior to this moment, if we look back on the journey that Moses has been on, it's been one where he has dedicated his entire life to leading an enslaved people to freedom. He's come face to face with God, face to face with Pharaoh. He leads the people to the Sea of Reeds, across the sea to Sinai, a rebellion at Sinai. He pleads for the Israelites' lives countless times as they sin. And then he spends 40 years wandering in the desert until we get to this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is the transition point from one moment in time for the Jewish people and then what will come next. And on the surface, there's no big, bold statement that says, pay attention. This moment is about transition and how we respond to transition. It doesn't do that at all. It doesn't actually even feel that different from what we've seen over the last 40 years. The Jews are complaining again, and it's not a new complaint. It's the same thing that they complained about throughout their entire journey. They don't like the food. And then they say there's not even any water here. Now this kvetching, it's not new. This is what the Israelites do time and again. But honestly, after 40 years, Moses, he's a little fed up. So Moses and Aaron, they need a respite. They go to the tent of meeting, they fall on their faces, and then they're told by God, quote, "You and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community, and before their very eyes order the rock to yield its water. Thus you shall produce water for them from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts." Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, "Listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock?" And then Moses raises his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. And out came copious water, and the community and their beasts drank. Now, this first part right here, it's not that surprising. It is right within the flow of the narrative that we've seen. The people of Israel complain, Moses gets fed up, and then Moses carries out an action. And the action that Moses carries out of hitting the rock is not actually the very first time that he does this. If you go back nearly 40 years earlier, you find a nearly identical situation in Exodus chapter 17, verse 3 through 6. But the people thirsted there for water, and the people grumbled against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us from Egypt? To kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" And Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, "What shall I do with these people? Before long they will be stoning me." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Pass before the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take along the rod with which you struck the Nile and set out. I will be standing there before you on the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will issue from it, and the people will drink." And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. It's God that tells Moses to strike the rock. It's right there. Earlier in Moses' life, the people complain about water. God says, "Go and strike this rock, and they will get water." And now, since we've already seen this scene before in Exodus, the response to Moses in Numbers is shocking. Because immediately following the striking of the rock in this episode, 40 years later, is radically different. This time, God says, "Because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the people, in sight of the Israelite people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them." So what is happening here? And what has changed between these two sections of the Torah? Because something has clearly changed. Now, I'm not the only rabbi baffled by this text and what happens to Moses. And what happens in rabbinic tradition is that when something does not make sense, the rabbis, they start explaining away at what they think it means. And this passage has rabbis coming at it with many opinions, all explaining where Moses went wrong. And it's like the all-star team of rabbis all have something to say here. Rashi, he says that Moses sinned in striking the rock versus speaking to the rock. The Rambam comes along and says that Moses' sin was his anger and how he spoke to the people of Israel in calling them rebels. Nachmanides comes along and says, listen, the sin was making it appear as if Moses the one who brought the water and not God. Other rabbis, including Ibn Ezra and Joseph Albo, argue that the sin is running away from the congregation to the tent of meeting versus holding his ground. And Abravanel says that it's not actually just this moment that Moses is punished for, but rather it's the accumulation of all of the sins across his entire life. Now, while they're all really clever, these explanations, they never actually sat that well with me. I'd always figured that if you're really playing by the scale of this man's life, given the service that he had given to the Jewish people, striking a rock? I mean, it's kind of a minor offense relative to the light that he brought to the world. And so I don't actually think he sinned. And if he did sin, it was just a minor one. I think there's a much deeper and a much more profound lesson being taught here. And that lesson, it's echoed throughout all of Jewish tradition. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, he posits that by looking at these two texts of Moses hitting the rock 40 years before and then hitting it now, we're actually given a peek inside of Moses' mind, into how he thinks, into how he leads. 40 years ago, when he was instructed to do this, he was leading a generation that had been slaves. A generation that understood how to take orders, a generation that communicated and understood leadership through the violence of a cane that is used to strike. A slave was not spoken to. A slave was struck. But Moses is no longer living 40 years ago. Moses is living in a new time with a new generation of people. Now, this generation was not slaves. This generation was a group of free people. Sachs writes, a figure capable of leading slaves to freedom is not the same as one able to lead free human beings from a nomadic existence in the wilderness to the conquest and settlement of a land. These are different challenges, and they need different types of leadership. Moses is prevented from going into Israel because he is no longer the right leader for this generation. Now, he was the right leader for people who needed to be taken from slavery to freedom, but demonstrates that he has not grown with the times and understood that he was living in a new generation with people who were not slaves, but free people. His reaction to the complaints to the rock were the exact same reactions as they were 40 years ago. And because of that, he made it crystal clear that a new leader was needed. A free people needed to be persuaded, not punished. It's not that he sinned. It's that he did not grow and change with the times. Coming into June 15th, with the world opening up, we cannot think and act as if things are like they've always been. We must change too. We see this idea throughout the Jewish tradition of how there's not a singular figure that we worship. We begin with the patriarchs and the matriarchs, then we go to Moses, then the judges, the prophets, the rabbis. And in each generation, as they have arisen to meet the challenges of that moment in their time. There's a section in the Talmud that talks about Moses going up to Sinai. And he goes up to Sinai and he sees God writing the Torah. Now think about the Torah, it's the 5 books of Moses. You should kind of know what's going on there. It's named after him. And he sees God writing the Hebrew letters in little crowns on top of the letters. And Moses says, what are those? God turns to Moses and says, a man will arise, a teacher will arise that will understand. He goes, well, who's this teacher? He says, turn around. And Moses turns and whew, flies into the future. And he's sitting in a Beit Midrash in a house of study. But he's sitting at the very back row of the house of study, which tells you, if you're on the inside of the story, the person who sits in the back of the house of study means they don't know anything. So Moses is placed in the rabbinic story in the place of least knowledge. And Rabbi Akiba is expounding and explaining halacha, Jewish law. And then finally one of the students say, Rabbi Akiba, where do you learn this? And Akiba says, I learned this from Moshe Rabbeinu on Sinai. I learned this from Moses, our teacher, on Sinai. Moses was the right leader for that generation, and Rabbi Akiba was the right teacher for his generation. What Parshat Chukat is imploring us to see is that as time changes, so must we. As of June 15th, California has reopened, and what I keep hearing people say is, it feels like we are finally back to the way things used to be. Maybe not completely there, but we're almost there. And Jewish tradition pushes back against this idea with all of its might. There is no such thing as going back. That is not what we do. Because if you're in the past, you're not able to be in the present, which means you cannot go to the future. If you're still acting as if you're a slave in Egypt, you cannot be a free person. And if you do not know how to be a free person, you don't have a place in the promised land. That is why Moses and Aaron are prevented from going forward. 2021 is a new era. We've lived through a pandemic, George Floyd, an insurrection. We've lost almost the same number of Americans to this disease as we did with all of the American deaths from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and the War on Terror combined. Combined. We're no longer in 2019, and it would be a shanda to act as if we were. The times that we're in, they're different, and they should be treated with such respect. In order for all of us to lead our nation and our world to the place that it ought to be, we must lead and react to living in the present in order to move us to the future. As our world opens up and we feel as if things are going back to normal, Chukat is the sobering reminder that if you do not change with the times, you're not permitted to step forward into the promised land. So our challenge on this Shabbat and in this moment is to pause where we are in our lives and to make sure that our reaction is one where we're not looking backwards, but rather that we are present enough to recognize the new and the sometimes really subtle realities of the new era that we live in, and then to respond to that moment in time. Shabbat Shalom. I'm on page 288.
Rabbi, I think it's time for us to return to the Aleinu.
I agree with you.
So we are on page
So I'm not on 288.
282. And if you are able, please rise. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. And now we're on page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that await to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. As a congregation, we are remembering Baxter Rice and Sheila Parton, who will be laid to rest after the Shabbat. We remember those who have passed away in the last 30 days. Herb Wander, Anna Halpern, Max Foreman, Karen Lieberman, Doris May Hacker-Friedman, Arthur Brunwasser, Gertrude Baer, Beverly Fendrick, Bernard Gordon, Marilyn Snader, Victor A. Levy. We remember those whose passing falls on this Shabbat. Claire Agaloff, Maludin Evmarov, Patricia Batat, Sophie Brayman, Norman Brager, Simon Brieger, Maximilian Breyer, Herman Berger, John W. Calkins, Herbert A. Cohen, William Arthur Kolsky, Thomas E. Curran III, Nathan Cutler, Claire Diller, Isabel Edelman, Julia Ehrenthal, Myers J. Friedman, Jean Gozer, Samuel Goldman, Dorothy Goldstein, Gloria Goldstein, Norman Grabstein, Florence Grafman, Barbara Levy Greenberg, Nathan Groper, Julia Galland Gutierrez, Betty Florence Hirsch, Arthur Jerome Innerfield, Roma Isaacson, Dr. Paul Kaufman, Robert Addison Kerner, James Butler Knox, Loretta Smith Kramer, Ruth Kirscher, Francis Lowe, Dorothy Manning, Victor L. Marcus, Rebecca Melner, Sherman Neymark, Nathan Rhodes, Beatrice Alva Rogers, Janet Greenberg Root, Nazarene Rosen, Stuart Ross, Arthur Rubin, Samuel L. Satil, Lloyd R. Sinkowicz, Lazar Shegalov, Lawrence Silverman, Alan Solomon, Irving C. Sugarman, Polona Turbevskaya, Cecilia Weidman, Moritz Wertheim, Michael C. Winetsky, and Francis Zuckerman. If there's someone else who you are remembering who have passed away in the last week, in the last month, in the last year, or this is the anniversary of their passing, Please share their name when my hand passes over you. And we rise and turn to page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. B'yamad divrach yotei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam amei amaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'itba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirota. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Amen. Let's turn to page 321. For my first night back with you, I felt like singing this particular melody for Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa V'chetzo Kol, Azai Malach Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levad Oimloch Nora, Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hovei, Ve'hu Yeh B'tzifara. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Masa V'chefso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora, Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hovei, Ve'hu Yeh B'tzifara. Ve'hu Echad Ve'ein Sheni, Lehamshilo, Le'achbira, Ve'li Reshit, Ve'li Tachlit, Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'ha'misra. Ve'hu Eli, Ve'chai Go'ali, Ve'tzor Chevli, Ve'yetzara, Ve'hu Nisi U'manosli, Menat Kosi Ve'yom Ekra. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa V'chefso Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra. Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol, Levado Yimloch Nora, Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hovei, Ve'hu Yeh B'tzifara. Be'yado Avkid Ruchi, Ve'erti Sham, Ve'ha'ira, Ve'im Ruchi Kefiyati, Adonai li ve'lo ira, Adonai li ve'lo ira, Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Before we do the motzi, just a reminder that all of our upcoming events can be found on the website, as well as if you could take, oh, it feels so good to say this, don't just close your Mishkan Tefillah virtually. Please take your prayer book back to the cart at the end. Otherwise, Terry will somehow find me and I'll be in trouble with her still.
And remember that we do have services on Saturday mornings. In fact, right now we have shlavim, we have waves of services. On Saturday, tomorrow we have one at 9 and at 10:45 and at 12:30. So anyway, check the website. You're welcome to join us. Of course, we'll see the Cutlers there in the morning.
If you'll join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz
B'te'avon.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.